clip floating around got us thinking that Lil Durk might have planned something way before Von got caught lacking in Atlanta. Could it be that 6ix9ine was actually right this whole time? Once you hear what's actually said in this clip, things don't look so accidental anymore. Just listen to what FBG Butta, a known op of Von and his OTF gang, had to say about Von and Durk.
Ain't no telling what Von had in the works. I don't know. But what I do know is all that happened. Von just sacrificed.
Now, if you know anything about the game, it's one thing to listen to someone talk about street politics who ain't involved himself. But when your ops start connecting the dots and air you out like that during an interview, that's a whole different ball game. FBG Buddha and many others believe Lil Durk was jealous of King Von and his success. Durk didn't just feel threatened. He might have actually sacrificed Von for personal gain. Let's face the truth. Von was outshining Durk in every lane. Buzz, street clout, raw storytelling. By late 2020, Von was on fire with tracks like Crazy Story that quickly became street anthems. He had that next to blow energy, while Durk's spot was starting to feel shaky. So when Von died right before dropping his biggest project, the timing was way too suspicious. Not to mention, Von's name kept getting used in Durk's music after the tragedy. Durk honored Von in tracks like Evil Twins, that dropped before Von's death, but has since become a rallying point for their close bond. And when Durk's album sales spiked posthumously, people started asking if Durk was honoring Von's legacy or riding it. Could it be that Von was starting to outshine Durk and Durk hated it? Was the student outshining the master? People seem to think that way. Let's not forget where these two came from. Durk signed Von. He brought Von and put him on whenever he was invited to a show. It happened back in 2019 when Durk was invited to the Breakfast Club.
Lil Durk, and you brought your artist with you, Durk?
Yeah, for sure.
What's your artist name, bro?
King Von.
What's up, sir?
What's up with y'all?
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Durk promoted Von, collabed with him, stood beside him in interviews, and always repped O-Block heavy. After all that, for a moment there, it looked like Von was hitting all the right spots. His bag was huge. He had a real buzz in the music world, and he had real street backing. Real respect from the trenches, not just industry homies. When you're in a city like Chicago, where authenticity counts more than streams, that could hit the ego different, especially if you're used to being the top dog, like Durk was. Now, we have to bring up Tekashi here because just like Buddha, he also hinted at Von being manipulated by Durk. Even though he's hated in the industry, Tekashi 6ix9ine spoke about this tension between Durk and Von whenever he had the chance. First, Tekashi said that Durk looked happy with Von on his shirt, and that he basically sacrificed him and got away with it unscathed. During one of his IG lives, Tekashi said this about Durk and Von.
Look how happy he is. He sacrificed. Look how happy he is.
Then, ever since Von's death, 6ix9ine called Durk out whenever he would get the chance. After Durk dropped the voice, Tekashi accused him of milking Von's name just to push his own work. Now, some will say that Tekashi knows that any talk of jealousy or betrayal between Durk and Von would get him clicks. But at the same time, you can only brush off the jealousy talk from so many people. Eventually, it stops looking like a coincidence. So is there any hard evidence that Durk wanted Von out of the picture? A number. But there's a lot of chatter out there that still keeps the theory alive. In hip-hop, perception can be more powerful than truth. Von knew very well that he was outshining Durk, and maybe that was his mistake. It's always the ones closest to you that you gotta watch the most. But what is it about hip-hop and sacrifices? And how often does it really happen? Before you brush off this whole Durk sacrificed Von talk as just internet noise, you gotta realize that this ain't just about Durk. It's bigger than him. In the world of hip-hop, especially the street side of it, there's this deep-rooted belief that success doesn't come without loss. When someone close to an artist dies, and that artist suddenly blows up, it's got to be a sacrifice. Take Kanye West, for example. After his mom, Donda, passed away, fans started putting two and two together. Kanye even fed into it, saying out loud that she was sacrificed by the industry. He talked it himself during one of the recent paparazzi interviews.
My mom ain't here. My mama was sacrificed.
Me too.
You understand?
Yeah.
Back at the time when it happened, though, he wasn't just grieving, he was pointing fingers. And then he dropped 808s and Heartbreak, reinvented his sound, and hit another level of fame. These sacrifice stories stick because hip-hop is all about survival, betrayal, loyalty, and legacy. And now, just a few years after losing Von, Durk is now fighting for his own survival, and it seems like his career might be finished. Maybe he crossed some lines too, just like Von apparently did. Karma is already spinning the block for Lil Durk because he's not on top right now. He's in jail, and the charges against him are as heavy as they come. Last year, Durk was charged with for hire, conspiracy, and gang leadership. The wild part is that the whole situation ties right back to the same beef that took King Von out the game. Right now, federal prosecutors are accusing Durk of ordering a hit on Quando Rondo, the same dude whose crew took out Von in 2020. Exactly 5 years ago, Von and his crew pulled up and ran into Quando Rondo's people outside a hookah lounge in Atlanta. It's a well-known fact that these two camps had friction, and that night things boiled over. Words were exchanged, hands got thrown, and just like that, it turned into a full-blown brawl. Things escalated fast and shots rang out in the middle of the chaos. Before you know it, off-duty cops working security and a nearby on-duty officer rushed in once they heard the gunfire. King Von got hit multiple times during that first wave of bullets, but when police showed up, Von was already gone from the scene. He was rushed to the hospital by someone from his team, but he didn't make it. Not long after, Lil Tim, Quando's homeboy, got arrested for Von's death. He became the face of the investigation. A couple of years later, that case took a sharp left and charges against Lil Tim were dropped. Georgia's Stand Your Ground law applied to him, and it was deemed that he shot Von in self-defense. But that was just the beginning. Durk took notice, and he was ready to take matters into his own hands. Everyone knows Durk wanted to slide for Von, and according to the feds, he did. Durk apparently hired a bunch of street dudes to take care of business for him. However, instead of Quando, the guys who Durk hired took out Quando's cousin. It all went down on August 19, 2022, out in Los Angeles. Quando was riding in a truck with his sister and Lul Pab when gunmen pulled up and sprayed the vehicle. Quando survived, but his cousin Lul Pab didn't. Durk hired 5 dudes directly tied to OTF to fly into LA from Chicago, all on Durk's dime. He covered everything from their flights to their hotel stays, and he did it with OTF money, so it's all traceable. He also promised them more than just cash. Durk brought up music industry perks, such as features, more clout, and maybe even a spot in the label, and the dudes agreed to do it. So the day before the shooting, Durk's crew tracked Quando to a hotel in LA. They sat on him, waited, and followed his car the next day to a gas station. Once there, they made their move. Gunfire went off, but they missed the main target. Instead, Lul Pab took the fatal hit. It didn't take long for the authorities to put the pieces together. With the financial trail, the travel records, and digital comms all pointing in one direction, the feds told us that Durk planned all of this ahead. But it doesn't stop there. Durk managed to pull this thing off because OTF was more than a label. It was a full-blown criminal enterprise. Durk wasn't just rapping about the streets, he was calling shots, sending hitters, and making sure he stayed protected while others did the dirt. It's no wonder then that even more charges started coming Durk's way shortly after his arrest. A few months after the original charges, the feds hit him with a new indictment, so they added stalking resulting in death to the list. Prosecutors have also linked Durk to an additional earlier for hire plot from January 2022 for taking out Stefan Mack. So who is this Stefan dude, and what does he have to do with Durk? Well, everything. Stefan was no joke, as he was a big-time gang leader running the Smashville crew in Chicago's Gangster Disciples territory. Mack got clipped outside the Youth Peace Center when 2 dudes rolled up in a car, popped shots, and took him out. Now, here's where it gets even messier. This was payback, and Durk was moving the chess pieces. Mack's death was get back for Durk's brother, D. Thang, who was shot outside a nightclub in Harvey, Illinois, back in 2021. Durk financed Mack's hit, just like the one on Quando. Investigators have receipts, and Durk and OTF are all up in those texts. But despite all these links, Durk hasn't been formally charged in the Stefan Mack case yet. The feds are still digging, and in other court filings related to Durk's ongoing for hire case, his role in Mack's death keeps coming up. As you can tell, Durk's situation is looking worse by the day, and it's only a matter of time before this case sticks on his name too. After Durk found out about all the trouble that's coming his way, he got desperate. In fact, he was desperate enough that he thought he could outsmart the legal and prison system. While locked up at the Metropolitan Detention Center out in LA, Durk tried to use other inmates' phone accounts to sneak in off-the-books convos because his own line is monitored like crazy. He had 13 different people who were ready to give him their phone privileges. That's just the start. The feds also claim Durk's been tampering with witnesses while locked up, and we're talking about a $2.7 million bribe. He tried to slide one of the key witnesses $1 million in cash and another $1 million from his label, and then topped it off with $700,000 in real estate. To prove Durk was a menace, he even sent out threats to witnesses and their families too. If this tampering stuff turns out to be true, it's looking bad for Durk. Witness tampering on its own is a heavy federal charge. It could stack years onto his sentence. The bottom line is this: Durk's staying locked up until his trial hits in October 2025. He's not getting a bond release, and he's for sure not getting home arrest. However, we did hear from Durk recently, even though he's still locked up. We heard from Durk recently after Brew released his phone call with Durk from behind bars.
Yeah, hell yeah. I know how that be, but it don't matter, but we ain't never moved on money.
Durk shut down the rumors that he's in protective custody. The audio was posted by Brew, another OTF member, and Durk himself told us that he's not getting any special treatment. Durk's general population at the Metropolitan Detention Center in LA, not tucked away in some protected unit. He sounds annoyed by the talk and says straight up that he's in a regular unit, not in some cushy spot. He also says the other inmates are treating him with respect. Durk stays upbeat throughout the call, telling fans he's good, holding his head high, and doesn't need anything. The vibe is positive, like he's trying to calm folks down and kill off all the wild speculation. Bruh backed him up, calling for his release and painting Durk as a solid guy who's focused on getting back to his kids. They also pushed back on the narrative that he's out here glorifying drama, instead calling him a man of honor and code. This was Durk's first public message since landing in federal custody. In street culture, especially in hip-hop, being in PC can make you look soft, or like you're hiding. Durk wanted to make sure nobody could spin that about him. He's standing tall, no extra protection, just writing out his case. Bottom line, Durk's making it known. He's not hiding, he's holding it down, and he's still respected even behind bars. And as for his team, they are still trying to do what's best for him. Durk and his legal team are still saying that he's innocent. His team is pushing a multi-layered defense to fight the federal for higher charges. First, they're challenging the use of his lyrics as evidence. They say the lyrics were recorded months before the alleged crime and don't prove intent. They argue that using rap lyrics is prejudicial and not valid proof. Second, they're disputing the witness tampering claims. Prosecutors say Durk threatened witnesses from jail, but his team argues there's no solid evidence, no direct contact, just unproven accusations. They're also attacking the credibility of the government's key informant, a dude who we still only know by CHS1 from the legal docs, calling him a paid ex-gang member with a questionable background. The defense says the case leans too heavily on his word, not on hard evidence. To support Durk's release, his team offered bond packages worth up to $4.5 million, cash, real estate, and business backing. They also proposed home confinement, electronic monitoring, and 24/7 private security to show he's not a flight risk or public danger. Durk's attorneys say there's no direct evidence linking him to the hits, no communications, payments, or transactions. It's all circumstantial. They also accuse the government of misleading the grand jury, especially about the lyrics, and are trying to get the indictment dismissed on those grounds. Safe to say, they're trying to paint this whole case as a witch hunt. Another black artist being punished for his lyrics and past. His family's come out in full support, saying the feds are twisting facts and blowing up gang ties that don't exist. But let's be real, this ain't just about music anymore. This is about power, control, and how far someone's willing to go to keep their image clean, even if bodies drop. Now, you can't help but feel some type of way when you think of Durk's story. Back in 2024, Durk was untouchable. He wasn't just winning, he was running the game. Dude had just bagged his first ever Grammy for All My Life with J. Cole. That track turned into his biggest solo hit to date. Durk had the streets, the charts, the industry, everything. His growth as an artist was front and center. He was repping for Chicago, giving back, and still keeping it real with his OTF fam. And the money was solid too. Reports had him sitting on $8 million from streams, tours, endorsements, and running his own label like a boss. But all that shine dimmed real fast. Out of nowhere, November 2024 flipped the script and his image was cracked overnight. Now Durk's stuck behind bars, waiting to see if his future's gonna be in a courtroom or back on stage.